garden friends. I'm standing here in front of the pond garden, and I thought today I would give you an update on what's been happening in the pond garden over the last month. The last update I did was at the beginning of June. It's now the third week of July, so it's been, what, a month and a half, 6 weeks or so, and a lot has changed. I've been working really hard in here. It's not done yet. No garden is ever really done, is it? But it's at a spot right now where I feel like, finally, my vision is sort of coming together. I do have some planting to do left, some ground to cover, but it's looking really great, and I'm very happy with it so far. So I wanted to take you around, take a walk through the pond garden, and show you what's up. Come on. As you come down the driveway, the road into the pasture, you'll notice right away that this edging looks a little bit different. We cleaned up the edge, cleaned up the weeds, dug out some grass, and refreshed the ledge pack driveway material going into the pasture to clean it up and blend in the path that comes out of the pond into the driveway. We also extended this barn wall a little bit just to make it all kind of make sense. This bed sticking out a little bit. Found some big rocks on the other side of that wall, just in the pasture, and managed to not kill ourselves dragging them out and putting them in here. A couple of them are pretty big. And so just built up this little bit of a wall here to kind of enclose the garden a bit. So let's take a look. So looking much greener than it did back in June, early June. And the beds are a lot more filled than they were back in June as well. So let's start here on the edge. We had put in the 9-barks the last time I did the video, and had just installed the geraniums. And those are looking a lot better than they did in early June when they were newly transplanted and very angry with me. They've settled in and are putting on a lot of new growth. So eventually this will be just a mass of geranium bordering the 9-barks. I've since added a few more perennials in here, and this is going to be ever-changing. I added some Nepeta. This is Persian catmint, a low-growing variety. Low-growing and spreading. And then I threw in some yarrows that I had grown from seed. This is Colorado mix, so it'll be a blend of pinks and whites. Probably going to throw some more in here just to make it a big mass. But for now, kind of give the suggestion of yarrow with these 3 plants. Back up here. So on this side, this bed here, a lot going on, a lot of new stuff. You remember the Amur maple from last time, still doing well. And it actually has these pretty little seeds now that the flowers have gone by. Can't wait to see its fall red color. Added a bunch of new shrubs. This is a Pinky Winky hydrangea, panicle hydrangea, in full flower, almost. And then I just added these yesterday, actually. These are Aronias, which is a native shrub, but this is a variety called Lowscape Mound. And I just love, they're so green, richly, deeply green. And they'll stay 1.5 to 2 feet tall, so they'll form a nice sort of mounding hedge here around this hydrangea. And they will have flowers in the spring, so can't wait to see that. But I thought they were so cool. I haven't seen a variety like this before. I do have native Aronias in the native shrub hedge behind the barn, but it's kind of unique to see a cultivated version of that. The columbine that were here last time, they're pretty much, they've gone over to seed. So I'll be collecting the seed actually and scattering it in different places. But there are still some flowers here. The Japanese maple Verdi is doing okay. I think it's getting a little too much sun, which I sort of was worried about when I planted it. And yeah, so I'm going to leave it here for now. The plan is to put some shrubs up here eventually along this wall when I dig out and do something with that patch of lawn right behind the wall. That will further block the view of this pond garden from the driveway, but also add additional shade to this area in the afternoon especially. It does get some shade in the afternoon, but the very top of it is still a little bit in the afternoon sun. So if I can do something to help block that afternoon sun, that'll make this look a little happier, but I think it's doing okay. On the corner here, I've planted a few erigeron, also known as fleabane. This is a variety called Lynnhaven Carpet. I'll put the name down below. Most of the flowers have gone by before I bought them. They were covered in flowers, but they have these pretty little daisy-like flowers that have a hint of pink in them. Really pretty. And they'll form a nice rounded mat, spread into a nice rounded mat here. So I thought that was a nice way to end the bed. And I still think that this bed needs more material to cover the soil, especially in this area. So still working on that. This bed in front of the pond, I've added a bunch of materials. Take you through them. The Siberian irises, I think these were here the last time. I'd scatter those all over the pond garden. And then threw in some more yarrow. And then these are liatris, which are brand new plugs that I got from a native plant nursery. So they didn't really flower much this year, but they will next year. Behind it are a grouping of grasses. And I think this, I should have labeled these. I think this is the switchgrass. This is a native switchgrass. And these will form big clumps, and I can divide them and put a lot more in this area. I'm kind of going for sort of a grassy theme in this area, native grassy theme. There's Mr. Frog, surrounded by his Carthusian pinks, most of which have started forming seed, and I'm just going to let them seed around and see where seedlings pop up next year. And this will end up being probably a big mass of Carthusian pinks. Some plugs of Verbena hastata. Now I have a ton of Verbena hastata in this area that's self-sowed from one plant, but at the time that I was placing the order from the native plant nursery, I didn't know that there were going to be a million other seedlings all over, so kind of repeated myself, have way too many of these, but thought I'd put some in here. Behind it, I've got some prairie dropseed grass, and these again were small plugs, so hopefully by next year they will grow into much bigger clumps and then start spreading themselves around, and I can divide them as well. And then ending with more Siberian irises. God, I love the sound of the waterfall. It's just so peaceful. Okay, let's back up and look at, here's the Japanese maple. Look at this bed here. Done some work, and this is obviously not done yet. Patio area, some bags of material. Pretty rock. I love this rock. In the sunlight, you can see the mica in the quartz on the bottom. It sparkles. Just a beautiful rock. So that's going to stand as an accent into the, next to the entrance to the patio, which has not been finished yet. The biggest addition, though, to this bed, actually two big additions, is this Weeping Hagen cherry. I'd been eyeing this at my local plant nursery for a while, wondering if I could fit it into the garden, and I think I found the right spot. I hope I found the right spot. I'm gonna climb up here on the patio. So eventually this weeping cherry will block the view of the greenhouse from the patio when you're sitting here on the patio, but it doesn't block the view of the pond, which is sort of the main focal point of sitting here on the patio. So yeah, this is going to be really nice, I think. And then I have another Japanese maple. This is Atropurpureum, I believe. I'll put the name on the screen below. It's more upright form, beautiful purpley leaves. I'm really interested to see what it does in the fall, whether those leaves deepen. I would expect them to. Most Japanese maples seem to. So yeah. The Sugartina crystallina, I believe that this is, summer sweet, is still here. I'm not sure that this is the right spot for it now that I've kind of reimagined this bed, but for now it's going to stay until I figure that out. In order to get this Weeping Hagen cherry in here, I had to raise the level of the bed, and I don't know if you can see this, it's now kind of a mound, which actually is okay because the bed sort of sloped from this wall anyway, so it allowed me to kind of level it off and build it up on this end here in order to accommodate the pot, the depth of the pot. This was the base under here was underneath the little barn that used to perch on this corner of the wall. And it's basically like hard pack gravel and clay, originally about 6 inches down, even with the soil that I put on top. Obviously the pot for this thing was deeper than 6 inches. So basically I dug down to the hard pan, put some compost, just a little bit of compost on the bottom, and then plunked the cherry in and then built the bed up around it. So it's probably a good 1.5 feet deep at this point, which is great. I think it adds a nice undulation to the landscape, and it will be kind of interesting to landscape this mound. And then it will, once I figure out the edging to this patio, I'll bring the level of the bed right up to the edging. So it will, I don't know, I think it'll look really nice to have a little bit of a raised bed almost next to the patio. Oh, one other plant in here that I can't remember if it was here in June or not, but here's the climbing hydrangea. It is already reaching and sticking to the wall, which is exactly what I wanted it to do. I haven't done anything to encourage it to go there, it's just going there. So it's already probably doubled in size since I installed it. Very excited. Over here in the bog garden, it's looking pretty full, and the little cattails, these are miniature cattails, they formed their little cattails. Aren't they cute? That clump is spreading nicely, as are the equisetum, horsetail, and the native Siberian irises, doing pretty well. There's this that has popped up, and I'm not sure if it's cattail. It looks like cattail, but I'm not sure how it got over here. So I'm just going to let it develop and see what it ends up being. Alright, let's take a walk. Walk back to the main path here. The bridge with the waterfall. Now the pond is definitely not as covered with vegetation as it was at this point last year. The frog bit that I ordered that last year covered probably at least half, maybe more, of the pond just isn't isn't growing well this year. You can see a little bit of it there, next to some water hyacinth, and some water lettuce, and then the water lily, which is doing pretty well. Some nice flowers. Yeah, so unfortunately, the frog bit isn't doing its job this year. And so I've been battling algae a bit more. I do have some pond dye in here to try to keep the algae down. And just hope that suddenly the frog bit takes off, and helps me cover the pond. Alright, so swinging back, looking over this section has filled in quite a bit. I've moved a lot of stuff around, introduced some new things. So we'll just take a little walk through. I'm going to pop down into the bog garden drainage area and get the view from here. There's some Acorus and the Siberian irises. Along here, this is Persicaria, known as mountain fleeceflower. I have 3 plants in here, and then this little one here, surrounded by rocks so that I remember that it's here and not to weed it out. Anyway, this will spread quite rapidly, I hope, and form a nice mat here with beautiful little pink wand flowers. Over here you'll notice the ivory halo dogwood and say, hey, wait a minute, wasn't it over there with the others? Yes. I had 3 ivory halo dogwoods along the back drainage rill, mainly because I needed a place to put them, and so I just stuck them in there. Once I got working on this bed, I realized it didn't look right to have them all 3 in a row because this is not a formal garden. So I dug this one up and moved it here in this bed, and I think it makes more sense. You'll see the 3rd one over around the corner there. I think it makes more sense to have them sort of scattered throughout the bed, offering kind of bright little accents throughout the bed. Next to it is the short tooth mountain mint that I moved. It was over here, and so I moved it, part of it anyway. It's scattered in a couple of other places. So it's looking a little bit ragged, but it will fill in and be a big mass here, and the pollinators really love it. Here's the weeping pussy willow, now in late July, and you can see the branches are just cascading down on the ground. It's lovely. It was up probably about here in June, so it's just continued to grow and fill in, and it looks great. It looks like a cascading waterfall of willow. I love it. Alright, we'll go back to the pathway. Birch is doing lovely. Alright, swinging around. I don't know why my camera is acting weird today. I've got a patch of ironweed here on the corner, and you can see it's starting to flower. Another pollinator magnet, butterfly magnet really. So here's the path, the stone path, that will eventually lead you to the staircase that goes out of the pond garden. Haven't really made much progress on that because we haven't really made much progress. I think I added maybe 1 stone since June because we haven't really done a lot of work on the barn wall garden, so haven't been sorting rocks recently. I have a patch of honesty that I grew from seed, and that, as you know, is fairly aggressive, but that's okay. I don't mind it in this bed because we have lots of space we have to cover. That'll also have pink flowers. And actually I'm going to go swing around to the other side here. Here is some more Verbena hastata that came from seed from this one clump right there in the center of the screen. I've been digging up the little seedlings and moving them around in clumps, and so there's a clump here and some more mountain mint as we walk along the path, and another clump of the verbena Again, this is going to be a big pollinator butterfly magnet in shades of purple. And then I have a few plants, I may add a few more, of native wild indigo that again will form big shrubby mats of foliage that'll fill in this space. And then on the other side, some more honesty and some more, this is ironweed here, and then this is swamp milkweed. All of these things don't mind damp conditions because, as you know, in the spring this was really wet, sopping wet. So this will stand up to sopping wet conditions and be quite happy. So as we move toward the granite staircase, there's another planting here of tussock sedge. And this I also got from the Native Plant Nursery in plugs. And I can't wait for this to fill in. It has such interesting little seed heads once it goes to seed. But I thought it was nice along this bog garden. Again, it doesn't mind the damp conditions in the spring, so that should fill in nicely. Whoop. So no, I haven't weeded the drainage drill yet. I will at some point. I need to really re-excavate the whole thing. For now, I've just been keeping the grass and the sedges trimmed so they don't sow themselves all over the place. The Arctic blue willow is still doing really great despite having all the rodent damage on its bark. So I'm going to keep my fingers crossed. Maybe put some wire hardware cloth around the base this winter to prevent further damage. But hopefully it survives. We'll see. Walking along this bed, in the video in early June, I couldn't walk along this bed. It was sopping wet. It has finally dried out, so I can actually walk along it and the rill without sinking up to my ankles. Here's some more swamp milkweed, getting ready to flower. And behind all these shrubs here are the little willows, the yellow willows that I stuck in this spring as sticks. They're all sprouting. And walk over here. You can see this one is actually getting big. So at some point I'll decide how many I want to keep in this bed. They will get quite large, so I may only keep one or two scattered throughout. I planted them in multiples in each spot, hoping that at least one took, and many of them took. So I've got to make some hard choices later. So here's one of the Arctic Ivory Halo dogwoods, the original. It's in its original spot. I haven't moved this one. So to round out the rest of this bed, we have massive plants of Joe Pye weed. This is gateway variety. These have got to be 7 feet tall, maybe 8. They're huge, and they look so cool. Just beautiful. I love the purple stems against the green, and they are going to fill in this bed really nicely. And I think with interplantings of the yellow willow, which will give winter interest once the Joe Pye weed dies down to the ground and gets cut down, I think this will look really cool. And again, this bed of all the beds is the most wet in the spring. It is, you can't walk on it. It is a swamp. So both of these, the willow and the Joe Pye weed, will love it here. And I also have in front of it a little planting of the Verbena hastata from seed. So I think this bed is essentially done, because these are going to continue to grow and fill out this bed quite a bit. Alright, walking along this back rill here into the corner, here is the sage leaf willow, looking great. And the high bush cranberry with a lot of little cranberries. Very excited. The birds will love these. Right next to the black cat pussy willow, which was already here. This is the Ruby Spice Summer Sweet that was already here. Looks like it made it through the winter. It was looking a little sketchy back in June. And also I tucked back in here a red twig dogwood that I had from the State Tree Nursery. And there are a few other State Tree Nursery seedlings that are in here as well that I added. So again, for reference, we're on the back drainage rill along the wall. Here are 2 button bushes. Actually, no, sorry, 3. 1, 2, and 3. These are also from the native, the New Hampshire Tree Nursery, State Tree Nursery. And these will grow quite large and have white ball flowers. I'll try to put a picture up on the screen of that. So it'll fill in this space, and the Verbena hastata clumps here are going to kind of hold the space until these grow and probably outcompete them. So let me go back, just so I keep you oriented here. Let me go back to the stepping stone pathway. There's so much to see here. Stepping stone pathway. I'll go back to the main path and turn. Alright, so we have Joe Pye weed and willow along the back wall, and then the stepping stone path that will lead to the staircase. So this bed, more Verbena hastata. This is the original Verbena hastata, which swamp verbena. Beautiful flowers that the pollinators will absolutely love. And then in the back of the bed here are the 3 button bushes. 1, 2, and 3. In front of them, there's another red twig dogwood from the State Tree Nursery. And then there are 3 native 9 barks, also from the State Tree Nursery. These are looking a little bit rough, although they are recovering. There's some new dark green growth here. They've been in all of these have been in the vegetable garden in the perennial holding row in pots. And I mean, talk about rough conditions. They were not watered except when it rained. Even though the pots were buried, they were definitely on the dry side. So these will be fine next year, but this year they're going to look a little bit stressed. So native 9 barks, these will have flowers, grow up to a good size and fill in this area nicely with native shrubs. Some more honesty, clump of honesty, a clump of the native indigo, and some more honesty, as well as big clumps of Verbena hastata, which I love this plant, but I'm not going to let it go to seed and spread around again, because I've spent the last month and a half pulling seedlings out of this bed, thousands of seedlings out of this bed and out of the pathway. So once it flowers, I'm going to be cutting it back and not letting it go to seed. All right, continuing on, we have the river birch that was here last time. It's doing okay. It's getting attacked by some tent caterpillars right now, but it will be fine. Here's the 3rd ivory halo dogwood that got moved here, and there's a little clump of ligularia that I was given. Our little Henry Sweetspire hangs on. It doesn't look entirely happy here, so got to reconsider its spot. There's some swamp milkweed popping up here. Actually, is this milkweed or is this? Yeah, this is swamp milkweed. And some swamp milkweed here also popping up, going to flower. Moving on, here is the drainage rill that comes out of the wall. There's a spring that's behind this wall that drains every spring and runs into the pond. And here's the bridge over that. This little bed here with the weeping birch and the power supply to the pond. I put in some mountain mint, and I haven't quite decided what else is going to go in here. Probably low-growing stuff, maybe some grasses to hide the electrical box. And I do have some of the Siberian irises in here. Crossing over the rill, this little bed is almost all Siberian iris along the pond and around the corner. And then the back of the bed, or the front of the bed from this position, is the switchgrass that was here last year. This is the Panicum ruby ribbons, and so you can kind of see some of the ruby streaks, but as the fall comes, and it's just starting to flower, these flowers, and eventually seed heads, these will be nice and purpley, and the grass will just get excuse me, more purple as the season goes on. And then, yeah, it's just a beautiful grass. I had one clump that I split into 3, and I'm hoping to split them again next year and make more clumps to add to the garden. Okay, so back on this side, I have lots of new interesting things to show you. I have a couple more button bushes, and these again from the New Hampshire State Tree Nursery. This is a native spice bush that was here before, and seems to be doing well in this spot. There's kind of a blank spot here that I haven't quite figured out what I'm going to do with yet. The creeping Jenny is filling in behind the serviceberry here. And yeah, keeping the weeds down, which is exactly what I wanted it to do. The serviceberry seems to be doing okay. The one thing I've never really liked about serviceberries is they're always sort of sparse looking. I know they're a great native shrub, but yeah, I'm hoping it fills in a bit more next year. I've been watering it well, I've given it lots of compost, so we'll see how that does. Coming back around here, I have 3 native hawthorn shrubs, or mini trees. I guess it depends on how you prune them, but I intend to prune them into like a shrubby hedge. But they have great flowers in the spring, berries, again from the New Hampshire Tree Nursery. So yeah, I'm excited to see those grow. In front of them, I've got some plugs of little blue stem, native blue stem, and again hoping these grow and I can split them and add more. And I'm definitely going to get another plug tray from the native plant nursery. It's called Bagley Pond. I'll put a link below. Actually, it's a local nursery. They do great stuff. They have great plants. And then another planting of the Persian catmint along the edge of the drainage channel here that goes under the road. And then the hedge cotoneasters along the driveway. The big rock bridge. Early mornings I like to come out to the pond and sit here on the rock bridge and just watch the pond and kind of take in the big view. And I'm hoping, you know, this will just keep filling in and become a lovely green, lush oasis of plants and wildlife as time goes on. The frogs continue to populate the pond, lots of frogs. And I've seen birds down here bathing up by the waterfall, lots of insects, dragonflies. So it's really starting to kind of settle into the landscape and become part of the ecosystem, which is great. So I'm going to walk up above the pond and try to give you kind of a bird's eye view. Hopefully it'll make a little more sense. Bags of Moodoo tree and shrub mix add a nice accent to the whole scene. So I'm just going to pan across here, kind of give you a bird's eye view. Very happy with where it is today. I'll give you another angle in a second here. I'm going to go up by the greenhouse and look down from that angle. All right, here I am by the greenhouse area. I was up over there in the previous shot. So looking down on the bog garden, just kind of panning across. Just in time for a helicopter to come over and ruin the scene. All right, well, that was the full pond garden update in the third week of July. Lots of detail, lots of plants, but this is very exciting for me. I'm so happy to see this finally kind of knit together into the vision that I had in my head. Now, I'm not a garden designer. I will never claim to be a garden designer. I tend to, the way I garden is to try to create a feeling that, you know, I have in my head, like, this is the feeling I want to create, how do I get there? And I tend to just sort of piece things together as I go along, and that's what this garden has been. I didn't have a concrete plan for, you know, exact plantings, exactly where they were going to go, you know, the immediate look I wanted. It was sort of an evolving process. I had, you know, a general idea of the feeling I wanted to evoke here, and basically it just kind of evolved off the cuff. And that's okay. You know, it doesn't have to be a formal plan if you don't want it to be. A garden is as individual as we all are. I think that's great. Well, it's starting to rain. I don't want the camera to get wet, so I'm going to wrap this up. Thank you for being here. I do appreciate that you're here, and I hope you come back and see more updates from the pond garden and all the other gardens. Take care. Bye.